It's a really big day for all of us who have lived through the agony of this pandemic.
Tonight, breaking news: New South Wales just hours away from a wide range of ease restrictions for the vaccinated. A new Premier takes the lead, but the unvaccinated will have to wait until December to join the party. We'll speak to our reporter live with the latest on a new Delta strain. It's Sunday, the 10th of October. You're watching 6 News also tonight.
I think our measures just make sense. They're basically cautious, sensible, preserving the great lifestyle and great health outcomes we have, preserving the great economic outcomes we have. Just means we'll be a few months behind potentially New South Wales and Victoria.
WA residents urged to get the jab as Australia slowly climbs up the global vaccination charts, while at the same time 2 European countries pause Moderna's COVID doses for younger age groups. And Victorian ambulances to be driven by soldiers in a bid to speed up response times after multiple people died when their 000 calls remained unanswered for 5 minutes. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Later this hour, we'll bring you not one but 2 big announcements about 6 News. You don't want to miss them. Plus, we'll head to the US, where 18 former NBA players have been arrested by federal authorities over an alleged healthcare scam. And first tonight, finally, freedom. In just 4 hours' time, New South Wales will take its first step into a new kind of normal. But the so-called Freedom Day comes with some significant caveats. Restrictions have been relaxed, not lifted, and only for those who have been double jabbed. The unvaccinated will have to wait until December to join the party. As of tomorrow, they will be banned from entering pubs, clubs, restaurants and other non-essential businesses. Ahead of tomorrow's reopening, there's trepidation and jubilation as the country's most populous state, with a newly minted premier, navigates uncharted territory. Chief reporter Connor Alforque begins our special coverage.
How long has it been? 106 days since haircuts, weddings and crowded watering holes. Delta is a stern jailer, but now cases have halved, and more importantly, 70% of the eligible population is double-dose vaccinated. A carrot and stick approach, with tomorrow the reward.
It's a really big day for all of us who have lived through the agony of this pandemic.
Caps on gatherings are set to increase. 10 adult visitors will be allowed in homes, 30 outdoors and 100 guests at weddings and funerals. Shops and hairdressers will also reopen, and gone is the travel radius, though travel to regional areas isn't allowed for much of the state. What will remain for the fully vaccinated: masks and QR code. Our ticket to freedom is proof of vaccination. This certificate will soon be as essential as your driver's license. Not until December will the unvaccinated be granted the same freedoms. From tomorrow, pubs, clubs, restaurants and other non-essential businesses will have to turn them away. Are they now second-class citizens? This is stage 1 in a 3-stage roadmap to reopening. At 80% double dose, travel within New South Wales will be unrestricted. Caps on visitors and gatherings will be raised, and masks remain mandatory indoors, except at office buildings. At 90%, limits on visitors and gatherings are lifted entirely. Masks are only required on public transport, planes and at airports, as well as for front-of-house hospitality workers. It's hoped that target will be reached by Christmas. Former Treasurer turned New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet moved to accelerate the roadmap, reopening indoor swimming pools and increasing visitors at homes from 5 to 10. He was also behind the change, making face masks non-compulsory in office buildings at 80%. The AMA has raised concerns over Perrottet's changes, warning they could lead to complacency and the subsequent skyrocketing of cases.
But we need to make sure that we do this in a careful way so that we're not 2 steps forward, 1 step back and finding our health system overwhelmed as it is in our neighbouring states.
New South Wales making the first Australian venture into a brave new post-COVID world. In Victoria, lockdown is set to end on October 26, when the state is expected to hit the 70% vaccination target. Overseas, this is what living with COVID looks like. Forget a new normal. Denmark has returned to pre-pandemic life, lifting all restrictions and declaring COVID is no longer a critical threat.
Now that there are so few non-vaccinated left. Those that are not vaccinated now are perhaps the skeptics.
Singapore, with over 80% of its population fully vaccinated, had conceded it must live with COVID, but last month reinstated some restrictions amid rising cases.
We are riding one big wave now, but we should be mentally prepared that there will be subsequent waves to follow.
Meanwhile, in New South Wales, the countdown to the end of lockdown is on. It should be their last.
And Connor Aforco joins us live now from the newsroom. Connor, good evening to you. A new Delta strain has been detected in New South Wales. What are authorities saying about that?
Well, as yet, there's no indication the new strain is any different in regards to transmission, vaccine effectiveness or severity, so no more concerning than the current Delta strain. Dr. Kerry Chance says the new variant has been linked to an overseas traveller, but it's not yet known how it leaked into the community. On Friday, 8 cases of the new variant were recorded. Investigations are ongoing.
Connor Aforco live in the newsroom for us tonight. Thank you. Meanwhile, Mildura is ending its second day in lockdown right now. The regional Victorian city had a dozen cases in its local government area before it went back into restrictions with the same rules in place as Metro Melbourne, except for the curfew. Meanwhile, other regions are beginning to be let out of lockdown. Students across rural Victoria from grade 3 and above are now required to wear masks indoors, while it's strongly recommended for everyone else. The state's Liberal opposition says they oppose mandatory masks for those under 12.
I don't think having primary school kids, in grade 3 or 4, for instance, wearing a mask all day is going to be feasible. If there's a lot of kids, particularly in primary school, who have concentration issues. I mean, I've got 3 sons myself, and I can tell you, trying to get some of them to wear a mask all day at school would be very difficult. So I think most parents would know that we accept it for 12 and over, particularly in public forums. We accept that. That's when they're getting a bit older. But under that, I think, is getting a bit ridiculous.
The move has also faced some criticism from parents who say it'll be near impossible to get their kids to comply with the new rule and have questioned how necessary it is. And Victorians can now take off their mask to drink alcohol outdoors. The change was announced at the same time it was confirmed the state's hard border with New South Wales will end on Tuesday. Currently 300 officers have been patrolling the area. In a statement, Victoria Police said 100 police resources would be moved towards the Metro regional border and the remaining 200 will be deployed to their original place of work or assist with COVID enforcement operations. It comes after the border bubble was expanded for several more regions, allowing people to travel more freely. Meanwhile, a number of babies have been placed into quarantine in the ACT. There's growing focus right now on the unfolding health situation at the Sanitary Hospital for Women and Children in Canberra, where infants have not only been declared close contacts, but also tested positive. The Territory saw another rise in COVID cases overnight as they continue their lockdown, with some eased restrictions now in place. West Australians have been urged to get vaccinated by federal authorities. Health Minister Greg Hunt says that the message for people in the state is clear. Please do not wait, do not hesitate. Currently in the state, the level of people who've had one dose is around 70%, and the level of fully vaccinated people is just over 50%. That is the lowest in the country. Nationally, jab rates are continuing to steadily rise. As mentioned just before, New South Wales has passed 70% fully vaccinated, the number needed for reopening in the state. In Tasmania, however, Premier Peter Gutwein recently said his state needs 90% vaccination coverage before it reopens to the mainland. On a global level, Portugal is leading the way, 85% fully vaccinated in 9 months. Australia has climbed up the charts after a slow start, now around the same as Hungary and Greece, and even approaching the same amount of double jab people as the US. But in Europe, both Sweden and Denmark have paused Moderna's COVID jab for younger age groups as a precautionary measure, instead focusing on other vaccines like one made by Pfizer. Reporter Marley Hawke has the details.
Sweden and Denmark have paused Moderna vaccinations for young people. This is due to the report of the rare side effect of heart inflammation. The Swedish Health Agency said that it would be pausing vaccinations of mRNA Moderna for those born after 1991.
When we see big time side effects pop up, it usually pops up very soon after getting the vaccine. if you've already been vaccinated with Moderna, I wouldn't worry too much.
On the economic side of things, over the weekend, shares of the COVID-19 vaccine, Moderna, have taken a fall. A Moderna spokesperson said they are aware of the decision by Denmark and Sweden. They stated that these are typically mild cases and individuals tend to recover within a short time following standard treatment and rest. The risk of myocarditis is substantially increased for those who contract COVID-19, and vaccination is the best way to protect against this.
It is, as I said, a very rare side effect we're talking about. Even if one has received the Moderna vaccine, almost all the cases appear after a few weeks following vaccination, and after 1 month, one doesn't see this problem at all.
Marley Hawk, 6 News.
And of course, that was Marley's first report for us here at 6 News. He's joined the team as a reporter from Melbourne, covering news from across Australia and the world. He's also our social media analyst, a new role here. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram. Just search for @MarleyHawk. Moving away from the pandemic now, a new report from SBS claims that investigations into far-right terrorism in Australia has increased by 750% in 18 months. The report states that the rise means 15% of all investigative efforts by the Australian Federal Police's Joint Counter-Terrorism Team now covers that area. However, AFP Assistant Commissioner Scott Lee told SBS that Islamist or religiously motivated violent extremism remains the predominant threat at 85% of our workload. It's believed the pandemic has ramped up racist narratives, namely against Chinese people and Asians in general, within extremist circles. From today, in-store butchers will no longer be seen at Coles. A spokesperson for the supermarket has told Sky News that the move was to meet the changing needs of our customers, meaning meats will be pre-packaged and only seen in dedicated freezers. Over 1,500 staff will be made redundant or have been redeployed, and the move has been criticised heavily by the Meat Industry Employees Union. Woolworths has already made the move, and Aldi has never had in-store butchers. Ambulances in Victoria will start to be driven by soldiers in a bid to speed up response times after 2 people died of cardiac arrest when their 000 calls remained unanswered for 5 minutes. It's also been reported that a separate call remained unanswered for over half an hour. Authorities saying they're receiving unprecedented number of calls for paramedics, and now the state's former police chief commissioner will be investigating the emergency call centre over many reports of these lengthy delays. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has more from Melbourne.
A system in crisis. That's how some have described Ambulance Victoria amid new reports of people experiencing long delays with calling 000.
We're very busy at the moment, Neil. We're at peak workload, and historically we're at very low levels of performance. So we're seeing a lot of COVID-19 patients, many positive patients a day, around a couple of hundred at the moment. We expect probably to be seeing 300 a day next week. And if the numbers continue to grow in the community, we'll see more.
And now for the first time, only 1 paramedic will be seen in each ambulance instead of 2, joined by a soldier from the Australian Defence Force.
There's no doubt that Ambulance Victoria is under a lot of pressure at the moment with the increasing number of COVID cases that we're seeing throughout Victoria and particularly Melbourne. And it's putting us under a hell of a lot of stress. But we are coping.
The state's hospital system has been under pressure amid the new COVID-19 crisis. And it's nothing new. In May, reports declared that Ambulance Victoria was at breaking point, and it hasn't been better since.
We don't wage war on paramedics. We work with them to make sure that we respond to unprecedented levels of demand.
The new measures come after it was revealed that 2 people died from cardiac arrest this week after their calls from emergency services remained unanswered for 5 minutes. A separate call also remained unanswered for 33 minutes.
This is the slowest the health system has ever worked because of COVID-19.
Victoria today saw another rise in COVID-19 cases and deaths, now officially passing the nation's record set by New South Wales earlier this year. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Overseas now, the fallout is continuing after dozens were killed by a suicide bomber in northern Afghanistan. The attack happened at a mosque and was the latest in a series of Islamic State shootings and bombings in the country, targeting both the Taliban and Muslim religious minorities. It's all come since the US and many international forces left the country to end what many called a forever war. Authorities in the US say Brian Laundrie was under surveillance before he disappeared. CNN reports Laundrie had returned alone to his family's home on September 1 following a trip he was taking with his fiancée, Gabby Petito. 10 days later, she was reported missing, and roughly 2 weeks after his return, Laundrie disappeared. Petito's remains were discovered on September 19, and the FBI says that she died by homicide. 18 former NBA players have been arrested by federal authorities over an alleged healthcare scam. They're all now facing counts of conspiracy to commit healthcare and wire fraud, but authorities say the scheme was uncovered because, in part, of the sloppy work of the defendants. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has the latest.
Leo, a lot happening in the United States. A big story right now is 18 former NBA players have been charged for pocketing millions of dollars, illegally defrauding different league health and welfare benefit plans in an effort to make money. We're told that 18, again, former NBA players had a very deceptive goal. The defendant's playbook involved fraud and deception, according to the U.S. attorney. And we're told that the ex-players and one of their wives were arrested in a 3-year conspiracy that authorities say started in 2017. Now, we found that these players alleged that they had dental procedures, many of which all done on the same day at very expensive dentist offices in order to defraud their league's health department area. We're told they did this because they were receiving kickbacks. Some have pled not guilty, but this, of course, a huge story. We're told each defendant made false claims for reimbursements that ranged anywhere from $65,000 to $420,000. So obviously, a lot of people very upset about this. We're told that 15 of those 18 players have been taken into custody. We don't yet know where the other 3 are or when they will be taken into custody. But of course, this is a very developing story, and we'll be sure to follow the very latest. As soon as we know it, you will as well. I'm reporting in the U.S. Jackson Gosnell, back to you.
A new survey says that 8 million Britons have been unable to buy essential food items in the last fortnight. Newly released data from the Office for National Statistics, or ONS, says around 17% of adults said they had not been able to purchase goods because they were not on the shelves. Sky News does, however, report that the fuel supply crisis is easing. 43% of respondents also said there was less variety when they went to the shop, and 14% said they had to go to more places to get what they needed. The Ashes is set to go ahead this summer after English cricket officials gave conditional approval. It's been reported that COVID restrictions here at home have caused controversy amongst some players, and also comes after England's Pakistan tour was cancelled. The series is set to begin in Brisbane on the 8th of December. Well, to entertainment now, and it's the show that has become a hit in dozens of countries. South Korean series Squid Game may be one of, if not the biggest show in Netflix's history, with its dark themes and graphic scenes capturing attention right around the globe. But it's not without controversy, as senior reporter Darby Travers explains.
It is the #1 show in dozens of countries and may well be Netflix's biggest game ever, but what exactly is Squid Game? Without giving too much away, Squid Game is a South Korean series where 456 players play a set of children's games for the chance to win a massive cash prize, but instead of just losing, they face deadly consequences. The response from the public and critics has been almost positive, with praise for its original concepts, themes, directing and acting, but there has been some controversy. The series is of course filmed in Korean except for a few scenes, and Netflix provides both English subtitles and a dub, which has come under fire, with some claiming it was inaccurate.
One expert I spoke to, who is a Korean translation expert, said that she felt, generally speaking, Netflix captions and subtitles are pretty good, and that naturally, with some sort of concepts or words or phrases from one language to another, naturally there's never going to be able to have a perfect translation. Of course, there's going to be some approximation. So yeah, I think it's thrown up some really interesting issues.
As mentioned before, Squid Game is one of, if not the biggest show in Netflix's history. has also been trending on social media from TikTok to Twitter as fans continue to have their say. What are your thoughts? Have you watched the show? Let us know in the comment section below by using the hashtag 6newsau or email contact@6newsau.com.
The female gorilla who went viral after a 2019 selfie has died. Park officials say in the Kasi passed away after a battle with prolonged illness. Andre Burma became her caretaker after her mother was killed by a militia in 2007, and she died in his arms. And Kasi was 14. And now is Ivan and Sarah with what's coming up later tonight on WAMN News.
Thanks, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, medical experts weigh in on why WA is not ready to open borders despite the 80 to 90% jab target, plus whether leavers should wear masks.
Investigations continue into the death of a pregnant mother of 3 in the northern suburbs.
Help Imani and appeal for donations for an assistant dog to help a teenager battling chronic health conditions, plus Dr. Mark Duncan-Smith's comment.
Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
All right, thanks both Ivan and Sarah there. Now tomorrow's forecast right across the country. Brisbane, partly cloudy, a top of 30, 14 and a chance of showers in Sydney, 15 degrees in Canberra, the nation's capital, 14 in Melbourne, similar to what we've been seeing in previous days, 13 in Hobart, 18 in Adelaide, 22 in Alice Springs, 18 in heavy rain in Perth, and in Darwin, the usual there, a top of 33. And finally tonight, as promised, we have not one but 2 big announcements about us. Next Thursday, we'll be launching a brand new show, Mornings. It'll be the fastest way to get informed with the latest headlines and stories that matter to you and matter to us, and will be presented by any one of us. I'll be hosting the first episode next week. It'll be different, however, to other breakfast TV shows. Not only is it not on TV, but it'll be more fast-paced and no gossip, none of that. It'll just be the latest news. It's worth a watch, certainly 8 a.m. Eastern Time, beginning this Thursday. And we're also launching a new show to combat misinformation, Fact Check. We're looking at politicians, the media and social media without any bias, so you can be truly informed and not share any misleading content. We also want to hear from you. So if you see something you want, fact check, tag or DM us at 6newsau, or you can email us, contact@6newsau.com. Both programs will be available on YouTube and our website, 6newsau.com. It's an exciting development as we continue to expand, and there'll also be a new episode of Uncensored coming very soon. And that is 6 News for this Sunday. You can stay up to date with the latest headlines by heading to our website, 6newsau.com, and follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Just search for 6 News AU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.